Acacia, si tú me lo pides, yo lo dejo todo.
Puedo con esto que siento.
Oh, looks like forbidden romance. What could it be? For those who have not watched the show, if you have watched the show, you are disqualified from this immersive start. But if you haven't, what could it be? Maybe he's her teacher. But did he come all the way to her house to confess to her? Those are cows in the back, and if I know telenovelas, they like their haciendas. So maybe he did. Maybe he's a private tutor and they're taking time away from their studies to profess their love to each other. Or if the cows are not hers, they could be his, which means he could be rich. It might be his home. So maybe he is her best friend's father. Looks like it, but it's still not it. So if it's not those two, he must be her boss. She might be an intern, and they are worried gossip would fly about her being a gold digger and him taking advantage of a younger woman. It's possible, but it's still not quite there yet. What else could it be? Forbidden romance. What if it's her boyfriend's father? Worse things have been shown. She went after him or he went after her, and now they have no other choice but to come clean, and they're worried that obviously they will not be accepted. No, it's not that either. I could go on and on, but let's just skip to the part your brain has already or might have already reached. What if I told you that this is Esteban, the stepfather of the girl who is Acacia, and no, her mother isn't dead. They, Esteban and her mother, are not even divorced, and no, her mother didn't run off and leave those two on their own for a period of time. Resume play. Ah yes. In the telenovela, or at least while I watched, I don't know why it nagged me when I noticed that they seemed to try to get Acacia to carry less blame than Esteban. She was very young, yes, yet not all young people would do what she did. As I am focusing on Acacia this video, I want to reiterate Esteban is, without a doubt, as terrible and trashy as he is portrayed to be. Acacia hated Esteban, not at the start. Her hatred started after her mother married him, or after her mother announced that she was going to marry him. There was a theory I deeply agreed with, where it was believed that Acacia had a crush on Esteban when she was a child. So her mother marrying him hurt not only because she missed her dad, but also because it was like her mother was marrying a guy that she liked. Which might explain why after her relationship with Esteban improved, she couldn't still grasp why she wasn't fully on board with the two of them, her mother and Esteban, getting remarried, and she got feelings when she saw them share moments of tenderness together. She would walk in on him professing love or kissing her, and Acacia would just be uncomfortable. Jealousy, more like it. Esteban made a half-baked attempt earlier in the series to distance himself from Acacia when he began to understand that his feelings for her were not normal. I barely even call it an effort. So all the things like getting her gifts, hanging out, and going out for rides, he put a stop to them. Acacia shared her displeasure with her then boyfriend Ulysses. Ulysses didn't get why it upset her so much, and she maintained that she must have come to desire a good relationship with him more than she realized. That's all good and well. You always want to have a good relationship with a step-parent or a stepchild, and it was obviously far better on everyone that they were not fighting. But Acacia later on tells her mother, far in the telenovela, that she never got around to seeing Esteban as a father or a father figure. Does that mean she was seeing him as a friend, a confidant, an adult married to her mother? Maybe, but mixed in with the unmentioned jealousy and the hesitance to acknowledge their relationship even when she was on a better footing with him? I am tempted to think she simply loved him, showering her with attention because she liked him. It gets so bad, her feelings and her confusion all gets to a point where she goes to speak to her father's grave, telling him how scared she was of what she was feeling because she couldn't make sense of it.
¿Qué me está pasando, papá?
Then come the incidents. Acacia and Esteban have a few incidents together. Once Acacia comes home late from a date or a meeting with her friends, and she greets Esteban, who she meets shirtless at the door. She hugs and says goodnight to him, but he corners her and they almost kiss. Listen, is that even remotely normal? She doesn't register the interaction as weird, but she was moving closer and closer to him. I'm not an expert when it comes to pointing out subtle emotional manipulations, but I did not see any at all with regards to Esteban trying to seduce Acacia. That's why I am firmly of the belief that they are both equally at fault. Maybe it's because I'm thinking of the cartoonish type of grooming or seduction where the guy is blatantly obvious. Maybe he's allowing her catch him in moments of undress or touching her inappropriately to see her reaction to his actions. I didn't see that with Esteban. I just saw a weirdo acting weird, and the person he's acting weird to did not respond like it was weird. Esteban would hold her, and in his sick mind, he would relish the embrace, but Acacia would always lean in and be in the moment as well, even after getting a boyfriend. With the first incident, nothing notable happened, but Acacia is evidently affected. Then they are back to laughing and giggling the next day. I don't understand. And then comes the hugs. At some point, there was a kiss that led to them almost touching lips. You know, you're trying to greet someone and they accidentally move their head and then their lips are near your lips. They laugh the first time. Embarrassing mistake, but it happens again, and this time, again, no reaction. That is your mother's husband though. I felt like she wasn't given the appropriate response. Even after her mother's wedding, when it was time for them to dance together, they've done the whole church thing. She was all smiles until they got close and began dancing. Then it was back to stolen glances and tension. Mind you, her mother is there, and so is Ulysses. They managed to get stolen moments in an area filled with people. Are you all blind? That was in front of people, but I think that was the only public time, and basically might have been the one time I expected people like Ulysses and Christina to look at these two and go, something is not right. How was everybody distracted? Not a single person looked at that dance and thought, that's too intense. Esteban put his hands on her and she just got sucked into his eyes and nobody seemed to notice. Sometime later, they both get lost in another moment, not in public, and she almost kisses him again. When I say they almost kiss, or I say she almost kisses him, I also mean he also almost kisses her. But since this video is focused on Acacia, I'm using she a lot. But the reason I'm saying they almost kiss is that Acacia is in a moment where they almost brush lips, yes. She still has her hands on him, and then her eyes start to fall to his lips. Why are you taking this moment to still be this close to this man? She looks at his lips, looks at his eyes, he inches closer, she inches up. Acacia, do you realize who that is? When you're in this moment, do you remember the man? Do you remember that this man is married? Apparently not. They almost kiss, and afterwards they are unable to fall asleep, with Esteban and Acacia going to the door and touching it longingly. Ma'am, you are not in a romance novel with your sworn enemy. You are at a hotel on a business trip with your mother's husband. On another of those business trips, she and Esteban are forced to share a room together. Unlike the comments I saw questioning why Acacia would wear what she wore around him, it was the least of my issues. She didn't intend to actually share a room with him, so she had little choice in wearing what she had to wear. If you've seen the series, you know Acacia wears a lot of short dresses, shorts. She wears them to bed on a regular day. So obviously, if she's packing for a trip, she's going to pack what she usually goes to bed with. So that wasn't weird to me. What was weird to me was what she did when she woke up. Acacia goes to bed. She wakes up to the sound of the shower running and Esteban nowhere to be seen. Then she proceeds to get up, push the covers off of her, climb down from the bed, go to the door, the shower door, and put her ear to it. To listen to what? Did you think he had passed out in the shower? Why are you staying pressed against the door? She is there for a long time. She is there long enough to hear the shower cut off, then rushes to bed and gets in. Acacia, what were you trying to listen to? But this all leads to the moment that finally doesn't stop at just looking at each other's lips. And this was the craziest thing to me that convinced me that Acacia was as selfish as Esteban. Acacia had before this kissed Manuel, a guy that her friend liked, and yes, you could say that he didn't like the friend, but that to me made it worse. She basically gave hope to the guy that was hopelessly in love with her, while at the same time breaking her friend's heart. She then spent the entire day begging for forgiveness, trying to explain herself because, as she said, she was in distress, drunk, and she wasn't thinking straight. Then proceeds, because of the distress she caused her friend and all the chaos happening around her, to kiss her mother's husband. First it was a friend's man, then it was her mother's man. And all this distress kissing was barely a day apart. It's not like she was begging for forgiveness for weeks. She made the same mistake back to back. Oh, how is this possible? And unlike the previous night, she didn't have the excuse of being drunk. And because they finally crossed the line, Acacia then has a proper reaction. A reaction she should have had 3 incidents ago. But when she gets to her friend, she tells her that Esteban is just her ideal man. How he carries himself, he's hardworking, he listens to her, and how he is with her mother. You would think he'd stop being her example of an ideal man when he cheats on her mother with her, but okay. Then you couple all this with the time she woke up after having a dream of a shirtless Esteban. This girl was thirsty. Over and over before this, she verbally acknowledged that something was happening with Esteban, but it seems kissing him is what opened her eyes to what was going on in her head. And she is horrified because she is now realizing that she's come to like him more than is normal. Then she cries and they talk and she finally decides distance is what they need. But oh wait, hold on to your defense for a minute or two because it gets worse. Esteban becomes aggressive in his pursuit because the kiss was evidence enough that she felt the same, and his obsession would see him leaving the house and trying to pursue Acacia, hunting her around town, telling her to admit why she's trying to pull away. Admit it, you want this, you want me, girl. I'm sorry. Acacia is then pushed to force the biggest wedge between them that she could find, telling Esteban that her mother was pregnant with his child. The wedge doesn't last. Cristina falls and the baby's life is in danger. As everyone waits for Cristina to get better, Esteban begins to seek distance again, telling Acacia that he would do anything, telling Acacia in front of the Lord that he would do anything. He would give up his feelings for her if only the baby would live. Acacia, why do you have that look on your face? Why do you look like you just received bad news? Why do you look heartbroken by his words? You should be on the moon. He further asks her for space and Acacia would not give him any, trying to hug and be near him. I understand wanting to console him, maybe. But not only did he say he wanted distance from her so he could think clearly and not be clouded by his feelings, she also left her mother. She left her mother's side to go consoling Esteban. Girl, stand up. Unfortunately, Cristina does lose the baby, and in her grief, she shuts everybody out. Unbound by the loss of the child, and unable to even help his wife through her grief, unable. He didn't care to help his wife through her grief. He used the frustration at her wild behavior to separate himself from her. And as he's sharing his so-called annoyance with how Cristina is so closed off and how she wouldn't allow him help her, Esteban has Acacia close to him again. And they waste no time in locking lips. Your mother just lost your sibling. Acacia, what are you doing? Acacia is then shown yelling at her grieving mother to treat Esteban better, a man she couldn't even stand the first episode. You would think she's finally happy to have a father figure. She's finally happy to have a good relationship with a man she considers a father, so she wants her mother not to mess this up. Nope. She wants her mother to treat Esteban better and not allow him leave. And while she's giving this whole speech, all I hear is someone desperately looking for someone to stop them from doing what they are desperate to do. Furthermore proven when she runs to beg Ulysses to take her back if there was any hope, all to stop her from running to Esteban. In the end, no one stops her. Her mother was grieving and Ulysses was uninterested and wanted nothing to do with her. And nothing within Acacia herself, nothing. No loyalty to her mother, no morality, nothing in her stopped her from running to Esteban and continuing her role of tragic heroine with him. She doesn't dive in head first, but she keeps visiting him in his hotel room because he left the house. She kept kissing him and running away. She insisted it was wrong, but somehow couldn't help herself from going back. I can't do this, Esteban. Oh, but I love you, Acacia. I love you. Oh. You would think this was Romeo and Juliet with an age gap. Girl, it is not. The glances, honestly speaking, it was a crime that these two never got to have an appropriate series to show off this tension that they kept on, because let me tell you, while I'm complaining now, I will not lie, the acting was on point. It gets overwhelming for Acacia when Esteban discussed leaving her mother. She kisses and eats and laughs with him like she is his girlfriend, but at the thought of him doing the right thing by Esteban's standards, and divorcing Christina, she is unable to bear it and unable to bear the suffering it might bring her mother. So what do you think should happen? You want him, but don't want him to leave your mom. So effectively, you want an affair while your mother suffers because he doesn't love her. The weight is too much for Acacia and she runs. Even when she runs though, Esteban finds her because Esteban is extremely aggressive, now pursuing her and not allowing her be. But she eventually spends this magical day with her stepfather, riding horses, getting flowers, sharing passionate kisses, before accepting to let herself go and be with her stepfather.
Arriésgate conmigo, Acacia.
Sí, Esteban.
They come back to town after he has sweet-talked her into being his girlfriend, after they have decided they're going to give a relationship a try. This man is not divorced. This man is not separated. But he didn't bring up divorcing her mother, so she didn't overreact. She was just fine now, accepting her feelings, even though he has not mentioned separating from her mom. So essentially, you're not only dating a married man, you're dating a man who is married to no one else but your own mother. And you're okay with it as long as he doesn't bring it up. Okay. They come back to town and resume play. He buys her gifts. They kiss around town, which, by the way, she expresses fear of being caught, but still has enough courage to kiss him over and over again in public. Also, do none of you know who these people are? I usually wonder about this when it seems like small town gossip seems non-existent in a small town. None of you know Esteban, this big man who runs this big hacienda. None of you know Christina. None of you know her daughter. None of you are wondering why Christina's husband and Acacia, her daughter, are locking lips in the middle of the street.
Esteban, aquí no hay mucha gente, por favor.
She's full on dating this man. One time he brought her a flower to her bedroom in her mother's house. She called him crazy, looking all doe-eyed and in love as they talk and kiss. And when he left, there was nothing on her face but bliss. Is the guilt in the room with us? She enjoyed all their moments together. But once again, she put a stop to it when it became too much, deciding she couldn't betray her mom. If I had a cobble for every time she has said that, I honestly do not know how much I'd have. I haven't been counting. But Esteban, the slime ball that he is, returned to Christina, who was still in love with him, and Acacia was indignant, and she tried to open her mother's eyes to the fact that Esteban was not in love with her. Her words were harsh, and if it was anyone else, I'd say they're coming from a place of love, because Christina also, girl, stand up. But while it may seem like Acacia was doing it out of love for her mother, I beg to differ. All I saw was jealousy. Acacia was jealous that the man whispering sweet nothings in her ear was suddenly back and sleeping in the same room, under the same roof, kissing and loving her mother and pushing her aside. If Esteban had divorced Christina instead of running to her for money as he was written to do, I truly believe Acacia would have gotten back with him in under a few months. You know why? Because she decided to open her mother's eyes by seeking to prove Esteban was no longer in love with her. She wanted verbal proof from Esteban, and it didn't take much to get it. That man was eaten out of her hand in under 2 minutes.
He folded like a lawn chair.
The seduction must have been something fierce. The seduction must have been so elaborate because it not only worked on him, but somehow it worked on Acacia as well. She returned to her room and repeated to herself that Esteban loved her.
Esteban no quiere a mi mamá. A la que ama es a mí.
Does she look sad at the realization, the confirmation that he is playing with her mother? No. Does she run with this information or set a plan to expose him further? No. Instead, she looked dazed and flustered by the fact that she is the one he loves and begins sneaking around with him again, but this time under her mother's roof. When Esteban catches her undressing, she is not in a hurry to send him on his way. He insists he wants her to wear his necklace on her neck and expresses his desire to have her, and she's eating it up in her mother's house. Cristina comes to the door and Esteban hides. Does Acacia try and convince her mother once again that Esteban doesn't love her? Nope, she even forgot that entire plot line. After she got the confession that she was seducing him to get, she forgot that she was seducing him to get it. To get the proof to set her mother free, absolutely gone. She got her mother out of the room to allow Esteban leave and not be seen. Esteban returns in the night and she talks about how dangerous it is, how wrong, while kissing him, but doesn't go any further. Does she go to her mother as more and more proof of his shameless infidelity keeps plastering itself on her lips? Nope. She says nothing. The only reason she breaks it off with Esteban is because she learned he was trying to steal her mother's money through her. And that finally breaks the illusion. It finally breaks the love. It finally breaks the obsession, the love, whatever she wants to call it. Not the fact that this man was ready numerous times to sleep with her while being married to her mother. That didn't break it. For me, it seemed they needed to make Esteban the worst, so Acacia was judged less than he was. Esteban was shown to be her father's murderer. He killed Acacia's father to get with Cristina. He was shown to be money hungry in addition to being obsessed with his wife's daughter, so he was easily the most to blame. But Acacia is as selfish as he is. Starting with Acacia's boyfriend, Ulysses, you just see a line of proof. Acacia was single-handedly the only reason her family couldn't like Ulysses. Anytime there was an accusation of wrongdoing, Acacia was quick to believe the other side, even when Ulysses would always claim innocence. I've heard of love is blind, but I have no idea how to categorize Acacia's love for Ulysses. Whenever there was a doubt about his character, she would not only believe it, but go crying to her family about how terrible he was. They would turn on him, he would prove his innocence, she would take him back, they would be happy, and she would do it all over again. She once saw him be taken home and taken to bed by another woman. He was drunk. She goes crying to her family, so heartbroken and so disappointed. They all come to find him untrustworthy thanks to her behavior. 1 second, she strongly believed in him, and the next second, he was scum. Even when he convinced her at a point that he was being framed for fraud and lied on, she swore she believed him. She defended it to her family, told them that Ulysses was right, she was the one in the wrong, she had judged him wrongly. All this defense lasted until she overheard the woman who framed him say that they were in a relationship and he forced her to commit the crimes. That overshadows every single word Ulysses has said to her. And Acacia goes to testify against his character, something that would lead him to go to prison. She does it. She is so sure. She is so annoyed that she was deceived. How dare he? Then someone came and testified that the woman was lying and Ulysses was telling the truth. Suddenly, Acacia began to cry again. She started regretting that she had even given the statement in the first place, which, for the way Acacia handled the situation, you would think she was strongly against cheating. She hated Ulysses at the thought that he was cheating on her, yet comfortably carried on an affair with her mother's husband. Why wasn't Esteban as despicable to her the moment he kissed her? Why did she have so much anger for Ulysses, but not the same level at herself or Esteban when they both began sneaking around? You would think someone had cheated on her or broken her heart in the past, so now she's just thinking every man is doing the same, like Valentina in Woman of Steel. But it's not so. I don't remember them mentioning any ex-boyfriends in her life that did that to her. She just overreacts with Ulysses and then proceeds to underreact when she's doing the exact same thing. She was so horrified and so disgusted when she thought it was him doing it. That's on Ulysses, and I've already spoken about her kiss to Manuel. But what really nailed her selfishness for me was her getting with Esteban when her mother was grieving the miscarriage of her child. Like, what do you mean snap out of it?
Reacciona y corre a detenerlo.
I understand dealing with people suffering from a mental breakdown and grief can be difficult because they lash out sometimes and it can get taxing on the health of the person on the receiving end. But it takes you a few days, mostly a week. They did a montage and I honestly don't know how long it was, but I know it wasn't months. She had no patience for her mom, and at her lowest point, Acacia couldn't have the decency to not start a romantic attachment to her husband. And it never sinks in that the man she is with is the man whose child her mother lost, and he didn't seem to care to respect that either. Acacia and him just kept going on together. But as soon as Esteban returned to her mother, she suddenly hated him and he was despicable. Acacia, please! She was even selfish enough to go to Ulysses and ask if it was possible to take her back when she felt the desire to be with Esteban was too strong, which reminded me that even while she was with Ulysses, she had been having these moments with Esteban. His love for her was enough to stop her, but her mother's love for Esteban couldn't do jack. It was only Ulysses that had the power to give her control over herself. What about your mom? What about the fact that your mom still loves this man? Acacia, please. Acacia is an only child final boss, and to top it off, my final nail in the coffin is the argument she has with her mom after confessing that she and Esteban were romantically involved.
Tú me dijiste que ya no te interesaba. Pero eso no significa que tú podías hacer toda la razón, mamá.
This argument was a long one, and if I can find it on YouTube, I'll attach it so you can go watch it yourself. I'm trying to avoid copyright strikes like a plague. So I'm only going to touch on the points that really irked me. First, Acacia getting angry when her mom, rightfully disturbed and horrified, dared I even say disgusted, began name calling, not even badly. I mean, for what she just found out, Acacia was lucky that it was a telenovela. There could have been nastier words said. Just a few names and Acacia demanded she respect her. Listen, I know nobody wants to be called names, but I don't know why her saying that made me physically want to throw hands.
No tienes derecho a decirme eso.
You know what you did was wrong. You have wronged her, but you want her to find the emotional control to express her disappointment respectfully? Mind you, when Esteban was getting married to her mother and even after she grew up, she called him many nasty names unprovoked. But when her mother is rightfully upset, it's time to check her emotions and speak respectfully. Acacia, how?
Ya bastante me lo he reprochado, mamá.
Bastante, Acacia, please. You would think the way she's speaking, she told her mother this a year ago, or she told her mother this 6 months ago. You would not believe that she's saying this as her mother is just finding out about this. I had a video on a character I called an almost forgivable cheater, and what they got wrong to me was an advice a friend gave them. The friend who was trying to be helpful said, you cheated on your husband and you're rightfully mortified. You want to say the truth, but you've said it to him and now you have a timer for how long he has to be angry at you for, or how long he should want to have distance from you because you want him to tell you what the next move is. You have been dealing with this for months. Let the person you just told process it for however long it might take them to process it. Do not put a time limit because you are not them. And that is what Acacia did barely a few seconds after confessing. You just told your mom you were sleeping with her husband. The best thing you could do was not only say sorry. Yes, you don't want to be offended or insulted, but to be like, Mom, you've said enough. Oh, show some respect. She's just finding out about this now. She's rightfully angry. Why don't you just bite your tongue and hold your pride so that your mother can vent and then apologize correctly? Another crazy aspect is she begins to heap blame on her mother, saying she married Esteban even though she, Acacia, was against it as a child. She tells her mother that she never came to see Esteban as a father figure. She says more things that sound like blaming her mother. But when Christina asks, "Are you blaming me?" Acacia says, "No, no one is to blame." How do you say no one is to blame when you just spent the previous sentence blaming somebody? Blaming her in particular.
Me obligaste a aceptar a un padrastro que yo no quería. Esto nunca hubiera pasado si tú no hubieras metido a otro hombre a mi casa. ¿Qué momento te fijaste en él así? En el momento en que te pasaste hablándome de lo maravilloso que era.
You want to know what a good apology sounds like for someone who is the same age as Acacia? I think they were both 18. Eva La Trailera. Ava's daughter Adriana, because her mother got a younger boyfriend, got angry at her mother, saying that her mother was just like her father who had cheated, and she goes against her mother's wishes and follows a man who her mother said was bad for her to leave the country. He later gets her involved in drugs, abuses her, and when she made her way back to her mother, she still didn't like the mother's boyfriend. She still didn't like their relationship. But in front of her mother, she looked at her mother and said, "I'm sorry, I didn't listen to you. I was angry, I wasn't thinking." Why? Because no matter what she thought about the mother's boyfriend, the mother had been right. She was displacing her anger and trying to rebel, and everything her mother warned her would happen, happened. And although she still did not like the relationship, she did not blame the relationship and start blaming her mother for the choices that she had made. You can't say you are apologizing with ands and buts in between. When you blame your mother, when you say if she had not done this, what about you? What about if you had not kissed him the first time? Or what about if you had kissed him the first time and confessed? What did you do to stop this from happening? How come you dare say you are not blaming anyone, or even worse, no one is to blame? Acacia, you are to blame. You are to blame. And I've seen some comments that also actually say Christina also deserved this because she was male-centered. She chose a man over her child. I would agree, but let me just play devil's advocate for a second. I don't think she expected Acacia to be as angry as she was for as long as she was. Children throw tantrums. I've forgotten how young Acacia was when her father died, but I'm thinking maybe Christina hoped that the distance would make Acacia miss her. What Christina did was terrible, I'm not gonna lie. But if you look at it from her point of view, Acacia did end up coming around. It just took a very long time, which yes, by then their relationship had gotten a fracture. I don't know. I still can't see it as something she deserves. But I guess that argument is always going to be half and half. She did let her daughter leave just to have a man at her side. So, but back to Acacia and her "no one is to blame." Who forced you to lock lips with him? To visit his hotel room, to have him in your room, where even when she was confronted by Ulysses, she showed more remorse than when she was confronted by her own mother. Ulysses was equally as angry, but she begged for forgiveness more than she did with her mother, who was the one she wronged. Of course, she also tried to shift the blame to, "Oh, you had gone, I was in distress," and Ulysses hit her with this, "So your decision in your distress was to go get in a relationship with your stepfather?"
Fuiste corriendo a refugiar a los brazos de tu padrastro.
No response. And all she could do was cry. She showed more remorse with him than she did with her mother, who was the one she wronged, because when her relationship with Esteban began, Ulysses was not in the picture. She just harmed the image of their love. She didn't cheat on him, but she joined Esteban in an affair with him being married to her mother, yet she's more apologetic to Ulysses than she is to her mother. Then she has even more audacity to tell her mother that, "You know what? Yeah, let's talk woman to woman.
En este momento no estamos hablando de madre a hija, sino de mujer a mujer.
Honestly, this scene only served to make me see the resentment Acacia had towards her mother. Maybe she doesn't even realize it's there, but if that is not what the writers meant to show, it's what I could see. Even when her mom was grieving, she was quick to blame her mother for pushing Esteban away, but not quick to be disappointed in Esteban, who was leaving his grieving wife because he tried and she wouldn't let him. In fact, to get back to the argument, look at the difference I mentioned in reaction between these two videos.
¿Quién iba a sospechar? Una cosa tan terrible como que son padre e hija.
Juro que me siento muy mal.
Yo me casé para que fuera mi marido y un segundo padre para ti.
Para mí Esteban no era más que un hombre.
Both of them, both the mother and Ulysses, were expecting Acacia to have some control over herself because the man she did this with was her stepfather. With Ulysses, she's sorry. With her mother, she's adamant that she never saw Esteban as a father figure. If there's no one to blame, can you tell us why you never saw him as a father figure? Because another man enters their life earlier in the series before this argument. His name is Hector, a friend of her mother's. I don't know if he's older than Esteban, maybe, but her relationship with him is father and daughter like. She didn't need him to be married to her mother to see him as such. She relied on him. She got close to him. She gave him hugs. Never once did they have the little eye moment where she was looking from his eyes to his lips. She got to see that man as a father figure without her mother's influence, without it being legally necessary to see him as anything father-like. Not her father, just father-like. But with Esteban, she's shouting at her mother that she couldn't get to see him that way because why? Why? You stopped being angry that your mother married him. You stopped, in your own words, being resentful. Yes, he can never replace your dad, but not even a father figure? That meant, like I said before, she liked him from the start. Acacia was equally as guilty. It felt like the writers were looking to give her the sympathetic outlook of just a young girl making mistakes, but she dug the life out of that grave. She buried her character with every word they put in her script.
Y por mí fue capaz de matar.
Ay, no, ya no sigas, por favor.
Yes, Esteban was obsessed. Yes, he was a swindler or a murderer, but I don't know why the writing for Acacia didn't set her apart for me. It only made me feel like the writers needed Esteban to be the over-the-top villain to overshadow Acacia's behavior. Just imagine he didn't kill her dad. Yeah, I know he did in the end, but just imagine. He didn't kill her dad. He wasn't with her mother for money, and he didn't try to take her mother's money. What would have stopped Acacia from being with him? The day she found out about him trying to swindle her mother, they had kissed that morning. They had professed love to each other that morning. Then she saw him do what he did. It was what lifted the veil from her eyes. So if he had not done any of that, if he had just been an obsessed weirdo, where would Acacia have drawn the line? She even tells her mother that, oh, thank God it never went further, that we never slept together. Oh God, Acacia, stop digging in that grave. Stop digging in that grave.
Tú me dijiste que ya no te interesaba, que no querías volver nunca a su lado.
That's essentially the entire video. I don't believe Acacia was innocent. I don't believe she was a victim. I believe she, just as Esteban, was guilty, a cheater, and the writing should have kept it that way. Personally, my personal opinion. Because when they had everybody coming around her, it just felt forced to me. At some point, I'm thinking even Christina would blame herself and forgive Acacia, but the level of childishness Acacia exhibited throughout the telenovela, I can't overlook it. I cannot. And I have a lot of comments, I've read a lot of comments that support that theory of Acacia being not innocent. So what are your thoughts? Maybe you are someone who could pick up on subtle things that Esteban was doing to seduce her? If you can, feel free to comment it. Feel free to comment your other perspective if you have one. Like the video and subscribe. Support the channel by following. Click the notification bell if you want to get notified when I have uploaded new videos. I'm trying to get to 1K by the end of 2026. Still have a long way to go, but I am hopeful. Thank you for watching this video, and I will see you on the next one.